thank RAA and AAAE for the opportunity to have little old Cape Air talk with you. We are that little airline that is participating at the very bottom rung of the airline ladder. We operate mostly Cessna 402 aircraft, 9-seaters. We have a grand total of 70 of them, so we've actually scaled pretty well. But we also operate the ATR 42. For us, it's really about picking a niche that works and that can be sustainable. We have to talk about what the definition of success is for our community partners before we even begin to talk about what works and what doesn't. I think Alex Marin really hit the nail on the head when she talked about be careful what you wish for and try working with the one carrier or the handful of carriers that you've got in place. It's much easier to make your existing service thrive and be profitable and sustainable than it is to do all the globe-trotting, meeting with all the airlines around the world to try and recruit more air service. We airline planners can't help ourselves. If you've got a route that is profitable, we've got a whole basket of other routes that are not profitable, and we want to move capacity from that unprofitable basket into the profitable basket. If you've got a route that's working, the airlines will add capacity. They may try other destinations, they may try increased frequency, they may upgauge. So that's probably the first thing that I can suggest, is work with what you got. It's by far the easiest thing to do, and it's got a great record of return on investment. I also think that we are, going forward, going to see a return to airline practices of the past, what we internally talk about as back to the future. You saw that, and I think even Chip Childs referenced that, as they're having great success with putting first-class seats on the RJs and upgauging the RJs. That's moving the, what 10, 15 years ago really were the heart of the regional business, up into a whole different level, and you're going to see this cycle repeat, where you've got carriers like Cape Air, who are now really taking hold and hitting critical mass, again at the bottom end of the spectrum. We fly piston-powered airplanes. And we actually are doing it reasonably well. We're a going concern. In our little niche, our business works. We don't make huge margins, but we're actually sustainable. And so it's true that, yes, net, the airline industry hasn't made money. But if you work with your community and right gauge the service, it may not be the sexiest service. It may not be fast. It may not have the newest airplanes. But if it's sustainable, then your community can count on it. And in terms of economic development, it's that sustainability that's really been lacking. Yes, 189 bankruptcies in our industry. It's pretty challenging. For the low end of the spectrum, Cape Air works pretty well with high-frequency 9-seat service. Phil Reed at the other end of the table at Pinnacle, they've got a number of aircraft in the next size up as the SkyWest. It's a matter of finding the right gauge airplanes for your markets, and then working with your communities to support that service. In terms of going back to the future, Cape Air is also, I think we now have more city ticket offices in the US than any other airline. Talk about something that's gone the way of the dodo bird. But we've actually found it to be incredibly successful in raising the awareness within the downtown business core of our smallest communities that they have an airport and that there's commuter airline service there. Most people just forget about their airport, either because over time they've had unreliable service or the prices have been too high. Putting it back downtown has actually been very successful for us. We don't necessarily sell a lot of tickets there on a daily basis, but it's the presence. It's a very economical way of marketing your service and being part of that community. I think the majors have all gotten away from them. The most in the continental US, I think, is 5 or 6. We are about to open our 11th city ticket office, and we'll continue to do that. Now, granted, we're mostly doing that in the essential air service communities that we serve, but it's actually been quite successful as we do that. One of the challenges for communities and for airlines working together is the natural inverse relationship in cost, in unit cost and absolute cost as you upgauge. It's true that you can get a lower fare because you've got lower unit cost as you upgauge a smaller community from, say, a Brasilia to a Q400. The problem is the absolute costs go up so much. So we've actually had pretty good success in the Essential Air Service program by down-gauging from a Beech 1900 or a Saab. Yeah, it's tough for the communities that really like having a cabin class airplane and flight attendants and speed and maybe even the major airline branding on the side. But in some communities, it's the right fit. And we've actually, in some communities, increased enplanements. Frankly, there's other communities where Cape Air is too small and where it's more appropriate to have a turboprop operator. Pinnacle and Cape Air have actually swapped a number of routes recently, and I think to the benefit of most of the communities where that's happened. It's just the competitive market forces working. And that, I want to end with one of the prompts in this panel, and that is how to strengthen market forces. I'm not sure that we should have the hubris to think that we can actually strengthen the market forces. The market forces are what they are. And my suggestion, and Cape Air's experience, has been that if you work with those market forces, don't fight them. Maybe change some of your assumption going in, you actually end up with a better outcome. You can increase enplanements by down-gauging airplanes. Sometimes you increase enplanements by up-gauging. You just need to look at your individual situation. Thanks, Spencer.